Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show. We are getting you set for Illinois, Ohio State coming up in just about an hour right now. Andy Olson joined by Trent Meacham live in the studio. We also have WCIA3 Sports Director Brett Behrens and Illini Inquirer's Derek Piper out in Columbus. We'll get to them in a second. But first of all, Trent, regular season finale, exciting day. And first of all, we're happy you're back with us.
It's great to be back. I think Brett tweeted out 16 years ago to the date, Matt Sylvester's three-pointer, down the undefeated Illini team. So this is just going to be a great matchup. Ohio State's a fantastic team. They've lost 3 in a row. Meanwhile, Illinois has been playing terrific. Iowa's coming back, so I'm really excited for this game.
Well, let's go get our first update from Columbus. And as well, if you guys are watching, be sure to put some questions in the chat. If there are some good ones, I'll ask the best to Trent as a former player. I'm sure he has some nice insight. So let's head to Columbus. Brett Behrens, how's it going in Columbus? And I think what people are most worried about, I want to ask you first, what is the update on Ayo Dosunmu?
Ayo Dosunmu will play today. He's not out on the court right now. The Illini will probably be back out here in just a couple of minutes. Brett Behrens and Derek Piper here from Value City Arena. And I think the big news everybody wants to know, is Ayo playing? The answer is yes. What does he look like in the face mask? You saw him out here a little bit earlier. How did he look warming up, Derek?
Look good. The jumper still looks pure. I know that he felt like he was ready to go in that Michigan game. I know we talked about that going in to that one, but had to clear the protocol. From everything I've heard as far as his shooting ability, it looks natural, jumping right back into it. Of course, Ohio State's going to try to make things difficult for him today. Yeah. Will he be in the starting lineup? I would anticipate that personally, but we'll see. An All-American is back on the floor, and that's big news for Illinois trying to play for a 1 seed.
Yeah, I would guess the same thing. If he's going to play today, he's going to be in the starting lineup. They want to get him in there right away, see what they're going to have with Ayo back in. And for all the talk that this team is better without Ayo, let's put that to bed. That's not the case. This team is much better with Ayo Dosunmu on the court, and we will see that today as the Illini get ready to face the Buckeyes here. And if the 1 seed isn't already locked up today for the NCAA tournament, it will be if the Illini win today. That much I know, Derek.
Absolutely, and it's not going into this game for sure, because if Ohio State wins, all of a sudden they are tied with you with 8 quad 1 wins, 2 over Illinois. So I think that's something that would go into the committee's mind, and then there'd be a lot to play for on the line in the Big Ten tournament. So I'm agreeing with you, though. If Illinois wins this, 9 quad 1 wins would lead the country. Even a loss on a Friday in the Big Ten tournament, I don't think that would sway anything. I do think you'd pretty much lock that up.
One other update today, the Dosunmu family also in the house here, just on the opposite side of the basket across the arena from where we're at now. We'll get to them in just a couple of minutes. We'll have an update on how they're doing. Of course, did that story would have been last month at the Northwestern game. Went up and visited with them, and they said they weren't going to go to a game until the Big Ten tournament. There were fans here allowed today. I know they are excited to be in the house and see Ayo Dosunmu play in his first game back after missing the last 3. And I'm not going to say they didn't miss him, because they did, but they were able to take care of business. Real quick here, Derek, before we throw it back to the studio, what's the most impressive part about what the Illini have been able to do to this point without Ayo Dosunmu, and then moving forward here, how do they incorporate him back in?
I think it's been keyed by taking their defense up to another level. They're now top 10 in the country defensive efficiency. To hold Michigan to a season low of points, that's a very efficient and lethal offense, as we saw when they bounced back against Michigan State. And they did the same thing against Wisconsin. It really, except for Dimitri Trice, just fury of threes late, they were fantastic in that one as well. But I think Trent's aggressiveness, going to the rim and being able to look for his shot, Curbelo just stepping up and owning the moment and not being afraid of it. And I think you want to see some of that some of those same things out of those guys, even with Ayo out there. I think that'll be a big key to watch for today and going forward.
It's great that Trent Frazier had 22 points in Michigan and had a game high and was on a heater in the second half, but I know for a fact Brett Underwood was more impressed with the defensive effort and what they were able to do, like Derek mentioned, in shutting them down. Andy, a lot more to come here from the Value City Arena, but we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to come, Brett. Thank you. We'll throw it back to you guys in a second. So let's keep it here in the studio for a bit. Trent, I mean, you played for the Illini. You've been part of this rivalry before. It's not a trophy like there is in football, but what is it like when the Illini play Ohio State?
And then I'm like, okay, I guess.
Ohio State, are these teams, how are they playing? And this season, both these teams are having one of their better seasons in some time. Ohio State presents themselves a very physical team, so for the Illini, that can cause some troubles for this team. But going back to my days, this is what it's all about. Early March, Big Ten battle. two of the teams, not only just at the top of the league, but top of the country. This is what you want to play for. You know, when you sign up, when you sign that dotted line to come to the University of Illinois, you play for these moments here against another great school, great team in Ohio State, and then get yourself ready. Okay, you're playing for a 1 seed, but also just to get yourself ready, playing your best basketball here headed into March. This is what college basketball is all about, and I'm thrilled to be here and to be a fan for it.
Yeah, well, not the first time these two teams have met on the court this season. Ohio State getting the better of the Illini at the State Farm Center earlier this year. E.J. Liddell for the Buckeyes, an Illinois native, had a career-high 26 points in that game, Trent. What do you think of E.J.'s game, and why do you think that he got the best of the Illini in that game earlier in the season?
E.J. Liddell's that prototypical just mismatch. He can hurt you inside, he can hurt you outside. You know, with Kofi Coburn on him, it'll be interesting. Does Coach Underwood, does he put Kofi maybe on Kyle Young starting out? I'd look for that potentially, because E.J. Liddell really spread him out, got hot early and stayed hot, and just a really tough matchup. Now, if you have DeMonte Williams or a smaller opponent on him, he's going to take you inside, really difficult on the boards. You know, he's that that prototype of a college basketball player, a little bit of a tweener, but very physical, very tough, can hurt you both inside and out. I love his game. Okay, I know he didn't choose the Illini. I love his game, but that's going to be a really key matchup. Can the Illini do a much better job on Liddell, and does Kofi start out on him? And how does that work? I thought Kofi last game was maybe more frustrated than I've seen him all season, because E.J. Liddell hurt him outside. And then they inserted the freshman Zed Key, and they went directly to him, went right at Kofi with Zed Key, who's a pretty good player as well. So I'm excited to see how Kofi comes out today and to, you know, impose his power, his strength. And if he can dominate, you know, in the paint, it's going to be tough for Ohio State.
Well, Brad Underwood was asked about Liddell yesterday in his Zoom media conference with the press. Let's see what the head coach of the Illini has to say about Ohio State's big man.
He's a good player. He's a really talented kid. You know, he's going to score, 16 to 20 because of his talent. And, we just can't give him the easy baskets. He made 4 threes in the first game against us. And we got to do a better job of contesting that.
So you heard Brad there. Better job of contesting is the way that he put it. Same thing that you said, Trent. And it's interesting that we bring up the fact that he's from Illinois, didn't choose the Illini, decides to go with the Buckeyes in Ohio State. It's not what you did, Trent. I mean, but what is it like that you've heard from teammates throughout your career? What is it like going against that former state school and when you decided to move out of state? Do you have any experience with that?
Well, I first went to University of Dayton, so I did go to Ohio for a year, but I came back to my hometown, my home state, my hometown team, the Illini. But whenever you're playing that team where there's maybe an emotional connection, there's a fan base that's pretty upset with you, there's a little bit of extra juice that I think you feel going into just when you face, the Illini. This was my home state school. I'm sure there was part of him that wanted to play for Illinois growing up, but so I think every time he sees Fighting Illini on the chest of that opponent, there's, a little bit extra energy, a little bit extra motivation to have a good performance. So, he's going to come out, with a confident mindset, especially after last game and last season how he played. And the Illini, they got their work cut out for him against E.J. Liddell because he's a great college basketball player, very tough matchup. So I'm excited to see what Illinois maybe does differently, the level of intensity and focus that Kofi comes out with against him, or Georgie, or DeMonte Williams, or whoever Illinois throws at him.
Well, I will answer a question here. Bob Gleason asks what channel. ESPN 3 o'clock, Bob, if you're wanting to tune into the game. So let's head back out to Columbus where the game is being played. We were talking about EJ a little bit, Brett, as I'm sure you heard. A little bit of extra juice in this one. Not just for him, I'm assuming. It's the regular season finale. You guys are there. What's the atmosphere like, and is that juice in the air?
Yeah, I definitely feel like that the excitement for both teams into this one is high. They know what's at stake. As the Illini coming back out on the court right now, Ayo Dosunmu behind us with his family and house for the first time. And Derek, I feel like as we step away here to get a little shot of Ayo, Illinois has played maybe down to some teams sometime this year, but I feel like when the stage is high, they play at their best. In a moment like this today, I would expect them to come out and firing on all cylinders. And from here on out, there's no more playing down in competition necessarily. You're going to see a 2-13 matchup or 2-14 or whatever there, but like 2-15. But still, it's the NCAA tournament. How do you get the sense that this team has kind of grown and matured to be ready for the moment?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. As far as being up for the big games, think back to Iowa, back when Wisconsin comes to town. That's never been necessarily an issue for this group. I do agree with you that you still wonder a little bit if you did get in an NCAA tournament situation. Now, if you're a 1 seed, just the talent of Iowa, the talent of Kofi, just the talent of your whole squad, you think would be able to overpower even just a little bit of a sleepy moment. But this team's been anticipating this stage, this opportunity for an entire year, and to finally be back, I don't think that we will find them off their game. So no doubt about it, a chance against Ohio State that beat you earlier this season, beat you here in this building last year when you still had a chance for a league title. So I think that's something that's definitely going to be on Illinois' mind, and another opportunity. They got to know that you win this game and you got a firm grasp on a 1 seed, and just to continue your case is, I'm sure they're still trying to prove they're the best team in the Big Ten, and I'm sure they believe that.
They were talking about E.J. Liddell, Trent, and Andy back at the studio, and he's such an impressive guy, and I've been asked multiple times and thought to myself, what would this Illinois team look like with an E.J. Liddell? I mean, that's a thought that is just for fodder, obviously, but I feel like he's that one piece that Illinois has been looking for years. How do they stop him, though? Because you know he's up for this game. He said in jest afterwards that he was trying to avoid the question, that he didn't get up anymore playing. It was the first time he played Illinois back in Illinois in January. He said he didn't get up for it anymore. I'm not buying it, though. He's up for this game. What's the defensive mindset against him? Obviously, other than guarding the three-point line, because he hits 4 threes in the first game, and 3 of them were essentially uncontested.
To answer your first question real fast, first thought, what would Illinois look like with E.J. Liddell? They look like the national title favorites, potentially.
Yes.
I mean, a front court of him and Kofi together, is there anybody that would out-rebound that, out-physical that? His ability to hit the mid-range and stretch the floor, and that really goes into what's become a matchup problem for Illinois guarding him, because he plays the 5 a lot. When you have Kyle Young, him and EJ are essentially 6'7", 6'8", kind of big-bodied forwards that can bang inside, and I think that they've shown, for the most part, they showed against Kofi, they didn't let him just completely eat them alive. But EJ is one of the most efficient mid-range shooters in the country this year. That's something that he's really able to do, face you up and knock that down. He can extend from 3. Now 4 threes, hitting that in Champaign is the first time he's ever done that in his career. But to your point, he does get excited, at least the numbers show, because he had 1 double-double his entire freshman season. It came here against Illinois last year, 17 points, 11 rebounds. His career high, 26 points, was in Champaign against this Illini team. So not only did he give you heartbreak by not choosing you, he has given you a lot of buckets and a lot of things to worry about this year and a couple of years going forward.
And similar to Andre Curbelo in that sense, I feel like he's probably a 4-year player that's just going to be that outstanding college type of player. Maybe doesn't translate to the NBA all that well, but like with Andre, he's going to pose problems for other teams for 4 years. And I feel like that EJ is already doing that big time, and possibly he's in that border first team All Big Ten kind of conversation for me at least. You know, is it a sense of you just let him do his thing and you maybe key on Washington or Young or Aarons a little bit, who's obviously a 3-point threat? Or how do you approach this defensively to try and, you know, do something different than what they did the first time?
It's a great question. I don't think you can just let him eat by any means. I know they wouldn't try to do that no matter what, if you're just going to guard him one-on-one. I'd be interested to see if Brad has a couple of different looks for him. They tried throwing Kofi at him, throwing Georgie at him. DeMonte was on him for certain possessions. Some of those smaller matchups, whether it be a DeMonte or even a Grandison. I know Grandison's 6'6", but you don't want to get caught having him in the post against an EJ. Would Illinois be willing to switch as far as when Young and EJ are playing together? Could Kofi kind of drop back when Young is down low, or even take EJ when he's in the paint? EJ extends out. Could you switch that and allow a Grandison or a Georgie to go take that? Because that's a challenge for Kofi to really move around and do all of that. But I think you do have to key on EJ. I know that Arns was huge in that first game, and he really killed you. especially in transition. That's something that Illinois has really got to watch for, especially as a team here that turned the ball over an average of 16 times in the last 3 games. So that's got to dial down here in this game. But I don't know. And Brad was asked about it. Georgie was asked about it this week. How do you stop that guy? Make it more difficult, provide a lot of effort. If they have the defensive intensity that they had against Michigan, that'll go a long way. But man, he's an all Big Ten first-team caliber player in my mind, and sometimes it's just hard to stop those guys.
Yeah, and I guess that's my main thought process in all of this is who guards him, and that's essentially what makes him so dangerous. Obviously, you want to try and key on that offensively as well, but I feel like there's other pieces there offensively for Illinois where from Ohio State's standpoint, Illinois doesn't have an answer defensively for that. He's going to blow by Georgie. He's not quick enough, I don't think, to guard him. And if you match him up with the Grandison, who's done a good job defensively, or an EJ, with EJ and Kofi just does not step out as well, and that's the big problem. We'll see how they handle it today. I know that's going to be a huge point of emphasis, and when a guy goes off for 26 on you in the first matchup, something's got to change if you're going to win the second game, Andy.
Absolutely. I imagine that EJ is going to be a point of emphasis for the Illini on defense for this game. So back here in the studio, Andy Olson, Trent Meacham with you. Want to read out some of the comments that have been coming in. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, on our website, wherever you happen to be watching, be sure to drop a chat. Barb says, good job, Trent. So there you go.
Thanks, Barb.
Getting a little shout out. Sandy is yelling from AZ. And Deanna says, go Illini. And we saw Io there, the first shots of him warming up in his mask, the Kobe all black that we saw him play with in the early 2010s when he had that facial injury. What is it going to be like for Io? I mean, as a player, having to be out maybe for an extended period of time, what's it going to be like reintegrating into that lineup after they've played with him for a couple of games? Like Brett said, the team is better with Io in it, so I imagine the team is going to have a little bit of a boost. But is Io going to see any troubles, or is he going to have to deal with anything having to get back in the lineup after sitting for a week and a half?
It's going to be interesting. I think for one, I don't think the mask is going to cause him too many issues. I think he'll be fine with that. His vision, his shooting, I don't see that being a problem. Whenever you have a little bit of an absence, even though it's only been just over a week, you might take a little bit of time to get your rhythm back. And I think if I'm Coach Underwood, I'm saying, hey, you go out there, you beat Io DeSumo, you miss a few shots, you turn it over, you kick the ball off your foot a couple times. Hey, sometimes that's almost what you need. Okay, I turned it over, I miss a shot, I make a foul. All right, I'm back into it. Let's go play. So I think that's what they need to do. Encourage him. Hey, be yourself, play to your strengths, do your thing. You're the best player on the court every night out. Have confidence in that. And I'm not too concerned about Io responding well. I think the key, though, is Andre Curbelo, Trent Frazier. Trent Frazier has been really good now for an extended period of time on both ends of the floor, so I expect him to continue that play. But Andre Curbelo, so good with the ball in his hands. And they basically just said, hey, here you go, freshman, you run the show. And he's been phenomenal. I mean, he has been a magician with the ball. He's been fun to watch. Okay, so now for Curbelo, how do you fit in alongside Io DeSumo? Can you pick your spots better? Both those guys are best with the ball in their hands, okay? Now can you pick your spots? Can you say, okay, now Io's on the bench for these, maybe just 5-6 minutes. I really got to step up, be the guy in that moment, or now I'm off the ball. I have to do a great job of attacking closeouts as opposed to playing the pick and roll. Okay, so he's just going to have to find a way to pick his spots better. I think these games, giving him extra minutes, giving him more responsibility, will really bode well for Curbelo heading down the stretch. And it's going to be fun to see those guys now back in the backcourt together. This is a big game, all right, for number 1 seed. But I think the bigger thing is for the Illini, getting your best player, getting your All-American back with the team, and just getting that, make sure you get out some of those kinks before the Big Ten and NCAA tournaments.
You mentioned how those things could be important, having to play without Io, those guys stepping up. How is your opinion of this team different from before Io went out to now that he's rejoining them?
Well, my opinion of this team moving forward to next season, I would say, is even higher. Yeah. But for this season, it's going to be very interesting because you don't enter Io's 20-some points a game and think, okay, the 20-point victory against Michigan that's a 40-point victory. It doesn't quite work like that. Okay, so there could be a little bit of feeling out, okay, how does Andre Curbelo, again, pick his spots a little bit better. He won't have as many opportunities with Io out. But I think the timing of when this happened, I think it's given guys some real confidence. Adam Miller, is kind of, gone under the radar somewhat, but his intensity that he plays with every night on the defensive end, he's shown a little bit more offensively. So I think that looks very promising for this team moving into the tournaments, because you're going to need some of these, role players or some of these guys that aren't your go-to player, aren't scoring double digits every night, to be able to step up in key moments. And I think this should give those players confidence, especially Curbelo, Adam Miller, Trent Frazier, Jacob Grandison.
Yeah, and the goal has stayed the same for the Illini throughout the season. It's been the national championship at the end. Yesterday, talking with media, Georgi Bashanishvili was having some fun. I really encourage you to seek out.
I can't imagine that.
Right? Can't imagine Georgie having any fun. I really encourage you at home to search out Georgie dancing. It's on our WCIA social channels. But here he is, not dancing, but he is having fun talking about the goals for the Illini still this season.
Our goal has been and is and will be to go win it all. It has been. We knew right away when the season started what kind of players we have, what kind of talent we have, and we kind of know that our potential is limitless. So right now, there is no change in our mind. We want to go win it all.
You heard it there. They want to go win it all. And Trent, we talked about how this team is different, having different players step up, how it's going to affect their run. They're playing for a possible first seed today. Is that still possible for this Illini team, what Georgie said?
I think, of course, it's still possible. And I think it looks more promising now than ever. Now, it's going to be tough. Make no mistake about it. Win, lose today, it doesn't matter. It's going to be really tough to run 6 straight in the NCAA tournament.
It always is.
But I think that's been put out there. I think the expectations have been there since before the season, and this team hasn't backed away from that. I love their confidence. I love how they're coming together. I love how key people are stepping up. And just imagine for these players, college athletics is a major sacrifice. You sacrifice a lot of the parties, a lot of the things that more normal college kids do. Now, this year more than ever, they've been on lockdown for, 9-10 months now, really. And so you're coming down to the end of the season. You've sacrificed so much. I think these guys are hungry. They're right there, kind of on the cusp of truly a great run. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Won't be easy. Anything can happen. That's why you play these games, because anything can happen on any given night. But I love the character of this team. I think they have the right mentality, the right mental toughness to really make a deep run. It's going to be fun to watch.
Let's send it out back to Brett and Derek. We mentioned how already this team is having some fun, and the goals are still the same, a national championship. This game is so important, like we've mentioned so many times, in getting to that goal. Brett, but I mentioned how I wanted to know what the energy was like earlier. What are you feeling now? I know before Michigan, none of us expected a 20-point win, but what are your expectations going into this one?
Yeah, I hope Illini Nation doesn't have this expectation that all of a sudden, you win by 20 plus at Michigan, and all of a sudden it's going to be easy coming in here to Ohio State today. That's not the case. The thing that I do feel, though, is that this team has the maturity and confidence now to know that they're good, number one. And I think they knew that earlier on, at least they told us that. But there's a difference, Derek, in my eyes, to have the cachet of a season behind you and the understanding that you have these games, you have these moments, Michigan being one of those, where you weren't favored and you came out and you won the game and you did what you were supposed to do and you played great defense, number one. That's on Brad Underwood's top of his list. But I think that does build to where the stage in this moment today is not going to be too big, and that's going to carry over to next week as well, to the Big Ten tournament, whether they play Iowa or in that hopefully Saturday game that we could all only dream of the scenario again to see Luka Garza, Wieskamp, McCaffrey, and those guys, or next Sunday Big Ten tournament title game, or even today, where it's like, okay, yeah, this team's been there, done that. They know how to go out and take care of business. What have you made of that transformation from this team, who was always confident from the beginning? They told us from day one their goal was to win a Big Ten and NCAA title. But to be here now, how has that matured and grown?
Yeah, I think it's part of the maturation process and becoming a team that can go on an extended run, because there was a while there where you just saw the inconsistencies, and as we talked about, playing down the competition that had you worried that it was going to end prematurely for a team that has so much promise, so much potential. But to come in having won 10 out of 11, that shows consistency.
Right.
To do it without Io, on the road against Wisconsin, on the road against Michigan. As I said, to do it with defense and kind of understand what it takes to be consistent and what it takes to win. there's no doubt that there's confidence that comes from that. And there's just a motivation and a feeling that we're playing our best basketball at the right time of the year when all the chips are in the middle of the table. And that's what you want. So I think that there's a lot of inspiration and a good feeling that comes from that. I will say this, Ohio State's going to come in feeling a little desperate. They've lost 3 in a row. They played what they feel like is probably their worst game of the season against Iowa, where they lost by 16 on this floor. So Illinois still has to be able to respond when that punch comes. It never came from Michigan. We all expected it. But Ohio State could very well deliver it, and how do you respond from that?
Yeah, that was my biggest thing maybe at Michigan, Derek, is it was 11 and a half, and I'm like, and even before, like at the end of the first half, I was like, okay, Michigan's gonna go on a run here before the half. They don't do it. Then at the first 4 minutes of the second half, Adam Miller makes a couple big threes. I'm like, okay, well, Michigan's gonna. They never do it. They never came back. Yeah. It's like they just laid down and let Illinois roll. It's not gonna happen every game. Give credit to Illinois, first of all. And the other 2 elements to this, Derek, is games that they've won on the free throw line. I think back to Wisconsin. That wouldn't have happened earlier this season when this team desperately struggled to make free throws, costing them games at Missouri, first and foremost, comes to my mind. And then defensively, and that was Michigan to me, there's a lot of boxes that have been crossed off now as we get here to standing on March 6th. The same day in history that Matt Sylvester made the 3 here. You had to do it. In 2005, 16 years ago, Trent mentioned it a little bit earlier. I retweeted it, a tweet that was put out, sports context and history. 1 shot away from a perfect regular season for Illinois. In that era, though, 16 years ago today on this same court.
Yeah, that's wild. Rest in peace to your mentions, by the way, on Twitter after that.
I brought it up. I went there. That's fine. It's history. It's facts. It happens. Some people still haven't healed, but if Illinois wins today, I think that's a big step for this program. And what you had mentioned, Derek, 10 out of 11, they are taking the right steps, peaking at the right time, and that's all confidence building for this team. Andy?
Yeah, you mentioned it, Brett. I'll leave those mentions to you. Don't come to me at WCIA3. Brett is where you go with the angry mentions. Let's finish some of our thoughts up here quickly. I know we all wish we could be doing this before, right up until game time. But Trent, really quickly before we get into predictions, I want 2 players, 1 from each team, who you think are going to be keys to this game.
1 for each team. We've talked a lot about E.J. Liddell, so starting with Ohio State first. But let's move on to C.J. Walker. He didn't play in the first game, I imagine Trent Frazier is going to be keyed on Dwayne Washington, who's their most talented perimeter player. C.J. Walker's been playing well. Okay, it's his first crack at Illinois. Illinois hasn't seen him. He can really go. He can score. He can get some buckets. So I think he's a key for Ohio State. If he can get going and win that point guard battle against Andre Curbelo, that's big for Ohio State. And then on the Illini side, I'm looking again at Trent Frazier. Can he be a 2-way player? Of course, we can talk about Kofi Coburn and that, and of course, but Trent Frazier, Ayo's coming back. He's a key. Can he really disrupt and take away Dwayne Washington out of the game, and also continue his performance offensively? Okay, so I'm going to go away from the main guys typically, and look at C.J. Walker, Trent Frazier. They're not going to be matched up against each other. I would expect for the most part. But both 2 big keys if they could really provide a punch on the offensive end for their respective teams.
I like that. Not taking the easy answer, doing a little bit more digging, and going for not maybe the usual suspects. So we'll come back here in a second and get our score predictions. But for one last time, let's send it back to Columbus. Brett, Derek, getting ready for this game. What are you guys thinking? Your final thoughts before we wrap this up, and it's almost game time.
Derek's got 3 keys in the pick on IlliniInquirer.com. We did not get the Michigan game right. That much I know.
No.
I said higher scoring. Illinois did live up to that. Michigan did not. So what are you feeling today, Derek?
I think this one will be higher scoring. I know Illinois with their defense here recently, they provide a challenge to Ohio State, but this is number 4 in the country as far as offensive efficiency. They like to go up and down. I think this will be an up and down game. I have Illinois getting it done with Ayo back. I think that he performs well enough. Illinois 81, Ohio State 77.
Okay, I like that. I'm on the same kind of level there. I think the winner is going to be in the 80s. And I'm going to pick 83 Illinois to 80. I think it's going to be closer to the end. I do think that the first team to 80 probably wins in that sense, that both teams are going to get up and going to score. We've seen that from these teams this year, that they're capable of that. And like you mentioned, that defense is going to be good. I don't know if I can come out and expect that same level of lockdown defense that Illinois had on Tuesday night. That's certainly the recipe to success, I do think that's a high bar to go out there and ask for that every single night, though. They're talking about C.J. Walker, too, did not play in the first game. What are some other quick assessments here as you final thoughts that you wrote about on Illini Inquirer as we wrap up here from the Value City Arena?
I think it will be interesting now that CJ's in the starting lineup. They're pulling Arns off the bench. How does Illinois decide to match up? I still think Trent Frazier on Dwayne Washington is the matchup that you really are going to watch for, because he's a bucket getter, not afraid to pull it from 30 feet. If he gets going, he can be really, really dangerous. I think Zed Key as well is a guy that, look, that front court, as I mentioned, EJ, Zed Key, Kyle Young, don't have the traditional height of a 5 spot, but they're physical, and if they allow them to get after it on the glass and allow him to have a good game like he did in Champaign, it can be tough for you, because when you look at their recent losses, that being Ohio State, Hunter Dickinson dominated them inside, particularly on the offensive glass. Luka Garza came in here and really made his size felt inside. Sure. Kofi wasn't able to do that with some turnovers and just not getting the ball and executing in Champaign. I think you want to see that if you're Illinois as far as trying to pull out the win.
And they've lost one since then, but the Ohio State game was really what started this run, right? And Jacob Grandison getting into the lineup. That was also key. It feels like forever ago in one sense. In another sense, it was a long time ago. But this was the game where Illinois really started to make a turn in mid-January to get to where they are now.
They've lost one game since then.
Crazy, right?
How amazing is that?
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable for what this team has been able to do.
Speaking of amazing, did you see Grandison hit 33 threes in a row today?
I know, isn't that crazy? Jeez. Maybe he should shoot a little bit more. Marley told us in the car, I brought that up, and Marley's running camera here. You'll see her on the post game tonight on WCIA, but she says it's easy to hit him when you're open.
Yeah, right? Trent knows all about that.
Yeah, right? He can make a couple of those. He can get it. We'll see how it does today as number 4 Illinois taking on number 7 Ohio State. 1 seed up for grabs in the NCAA tournament as the Illini head to Indianapolis next week. And Derek, I was talking with Kent Brown, the sports information director at Illinois. They're leaving on Thursday for Indianapolis. They're hoping not to come back for a month. They're just going to stay in Indianapolis, as all the teams are with both the Big Ten and NCAA tournaments over there. Their goals are to be there in Indianapolis for a month in a hotel room. Doesn't sound like a great life choice necessarily to be in a hotel room for a month, but if you're trying to win an NCAA tournament title, it's going to be worth it.
I'm going to bring a semi-truck with all the bags and clothes and everything.
Yeah, right, for these guys.
It's crazy.
Good stuff.
Hey, let's get a documentary out of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a fun ride here in March the rest of the way, and what is hopefully April as we continue on the Illini Nation pregame shows. But for the final time in the regular season, at least we know that much. For Derek Piper, I'm Brett Behrens. Andy, we'll send it back to you live here from Ohio State.
All right, thanks, Brett. It was a lot of fun to end the regular season. You've had a lot of these on the road. Let's say we switch places next week at the Big Ten tournament. How about?
That sounds great. It's going to be fun.
It will be fun. All right, we'll keep it here now. Back in the studio, Andy Olson, Trent Meacham. Thank you again, Brett Behrens and Derek Piper out there. We heard their predictions, Trent. I want to hear your prediction now. What do you think it's going to be?
First off, Brett, Marley, give some credit to Jacob Grandison. 33, 35, 3. I think it was maybe 35 or whatever. Your 33s in a row is very impressive. I don't care if you're the only person in the gym. So let's give some credit there to Jacob Grandison. My prediction for tonight, I hope it's high scoring. I really do. Right. Jacob Grandison, shoot the rock. You know, I hope this is in the 80s. I'm going to say 77-75 for the Illini tonight. And you know what? I'm not a betting man, but I lost some money. I lost some money this first matchup against Illinois. One of my former teammates professionally, David Lighty, all-time Buckeye. I think he's the all-time winningest Buckeye. We had a wager going. I had to pay up on David Lighty. So I need to hit him up here right away before this game starts and win my money back because I got the Illini winning 77-75.
I'm pretty similar to you. I'm thinking 79-76. I think I saw the total was at about 150 or something like that. All of us think it's going to be high scoring. So I think we all think it's going to end up on one side of that coin. I've been reading your guys' comments. It's been great. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I want to highlight one specifically. Matt Carlin saying that this was awesome. Thanks for doing this. No problem, Matt. We do this for a lot of pre-games. We're also doing it next week for the Big Ten tournament, so be sure to tune in again next week as we get you set for the Big Ten tournament. Illini not playing until Friday. Hopefully they're playing Saturday and Sunday as well, so we have a couple more of these for you. Trent, thank you so much again. Thank you to Derek Piper, Brett Behrens out in the field as well in Columbus. We're going to have post-game reports as well. Tune into WCIA, the newscast at 6 and 10 as well. We'll have the post-game press conference streaming right here on our digital channels as well as a lot more content coming on Facebook and Twitter. All right, Trent, last word. I have a comment here that says ILL.
I. Let's get them today.
That's right. All right, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you after the game. Enjoy.